The night I joked, "I drove a drunk girl home," I thought it would be just another strange story from another difficult day. I had no idea that a few hours later I would be standing face to face with my boss, staring into eyes filled with shock and discovering a secret that would completely change my life. What happened that night connected two people who had been strangers for years. It uncovered a truth buried deep in the past. And it taught me that one small act of kindness can travel through time in ways we never expect. I thought I was helping a stranger. I had no idea she was about to save me too. If you believe kindness can change a life, please like this video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel for more unforgettable stories. Also, tell us where you're watching from in the comments. 3 years ago, my life looked nothing like I had imagined. I was living in Columbus, Ohio, working as an operations coordinator for a large logistics company. The pay covered the bills, but barely. After my divorce, I moved into a small apartment overlooking a parking lot filled with cracked pavement and flickering streetlights. Most evenings were spent eating microwave dinners alone while wondering where everything had gone wrong. The loneliness felt heavier than any financial struggle. Every day seemed to blend into the next, and I often wondered whether life would ever surprise me again. One Friday evening in late October, a cold storm rolled across the city. Rain hammered against office windows while thunder rattled the building. Everyone rushed home, eager to escape the weather. I stayed late to finish reports because overtime pay helped cover my growing credit card debt. By the time I finally left, the roads looked like rivers reflecting endless red brake lights beneath the dark sky. About halfway home, I noticed someone stumbling along the shoulder of a nearly empty road. At first, I thought it was just another pedestrian caught in the storm, but as I drove closer, I saw it was a young woman. She looked no older than 21. Her clothes were soaked. Her blonde hair clung to her face. She nearly slipped into a puddle as cars sped past without slowing down. Something felt wrong. I pulled over. When she approached my car, I noticed tears mixing with rainwater on her cheeks. Her eyes looked unfocused, and the smell of alcohol drifted through the open window. She wasn't aggressive or reckless. She simply looked lost. Against my better judgment, I offered her a ride home. During the drive, she drifted in and out of sleep. She murmured a few addresses before finally giving me one in an upscale neighborhood on the northern side of the city. The contrast between her condition and the neighborhood she described immediately raised questions. Why was someone from such a wealthy area wandering alone during a storm? I didn't know, but I was about to find out. The house was enormous. Warm lights glowed through tall windows. A stone pathway led to a front door large enough to belong in a movie. As I helped the young woman walk toward the entrance, I wondered what kind of family lived there. The door opened before we knocked. A woman stood there frozen. The expression on her face shifted from confusion to relief and then to disbelief. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then I recognized her. My heart nearly stopped. She was my boss. Her name was Victoria Hayes, the regional director who oversaw hundreds of employees. She was respected, feared, and known for expecting perfection. I had spoken with her dozens of times in meetings, but never outside work. Yet there she was, and the young woman beside me was her daughter. The next morning at work, I expected embarrassment, maybe even trouble. Instead, Victoria called me into her office. What happened inside that room would become the first twist in a story far bigger than either of us realized. She thanked me, not as a boss, as a mother. Tears filled her eyes as she explained that her daughter, Chloe, had been struggling since the death of her father. Grief had pushed her toward destructive choices. Victoria had spent years trying to help her, but nothing seemed to work. Then she said something unexpected. She told me Chloe remembered almost nothing from the previous night except one thing. She remembered that someone had treated her with kindness when they didn't have to. That simple act had made her feel worth saving. I left the office feeling strange. I couldn't explain why, but something about the entire experience stayed with me. Days passed, then weeks. Occasionally, Victoria would mention that Chloe was doing better. She had started counseling. She was attending classes again. Her life appeared to be moving in the right direction. I assumed that was the end of the story. I was wrong. Several months later, another storm arrived. The rain was even heavier than before. I had just returned home when a knock echoed through my apartment. Standing outside was a young woman, completely soaked from head to toe. It was Chloe. Rain dripped from her hair as she nervously smiled and asked if she could use the bathroom because her car had broken down nearby. The moment felt strangely familiar. I invited her inside. As she dried her hands afterward, her eyes wandered around my tiny apartment. She noticed the worn furniture, the unpaid bills stacked on the table, and the framed photograph of an older woman sitting on a shelf. She asked who the woman was. I told her she was my mother, and that was when everything changed. Chloe stared at the picture. Her face turned pale. She looked as though she had seen a ghost. Then she asked a question that made no sense. She wanted to know whether my mother had ever volunteered at a church shelter in Cincinnati nearly 20 years earlier. My stomach tightened. The answer was yes. How could she possibly know that? The mystery deepened when Chloe explained that her late father often told a story about a woman who had once saved his life. Years ago, he had been homeless, hungry, and sleeping in his car after losing everything. One cold winter evening, a volunteer at a church shelter had given him food, warm clothes, and enough money for gas. That kindness had helped him travel to a job interview that eventually changed his future. The volunteer's name had been Margaret. My mother's name was Margaret. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Could it really be the same person? The possibility felt impossible, yet the details matched perfectly. Over the next few weeks, Victoria helped uncover old records from the church. Eventually, the truth emerged. It was my mother. The struggling man she had helped decades earlier was Chloe's father. The discovery left all of us speechless. A single act of kindness from my mother had helped a desperate stranger rebuild his life. That stranger eventually became successful, built a family, and raised a daughter. Years later, that daughter found herself lost and broken during a storm, and somehow fate had placed me on the road where she needed help. The second twist hit even harder. Victoria revealed something I never expected. The company where I worked existed because of investments made by Chloe's father years earlier. His success had created opportunities for hundreds of employees, including me. In a strange way, my mother's kindness had indirectly helped support my own livelihood. The connection seemed almost unbelievable. But life wasn't finished surprising us. A few months later, our company faced major layoffs. Business slowed dramatically. Rumors spread through every department. Many employees feared losing their jobs. I was one of them. With debt already piling up, unemployment would have devastated me. Then the third and most emotional twist arrived. Victoria called me into her office once again. This time she wasn't there to discuss Chloe. She informed me that instead of being laid off, I was being promoted. The leadership team had reviewed my work, my reliability, and my character. The way I handled difficult situations had impressed people far more than I realized. For years I had believed nobody noticed my efforts. I was wrong. Someone had been paying attention all along. The promotion didn't make me rich overnight, but it gave me stability. More importantly, it gave me hope. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Your support helps us share more stories that remind people there is still kindness in this world. As time passed, Chloe continued rebuilding her life. She graduated from college. Her confidence returned. The sadness that once filled her eyes slowly gave way to genuine happiness. Victoria became less guarded and more open. The walls she had built around herself began to disappear, and every now and then we would sit together and talk about the incredible chain of events that connected all our lives. One winter evening, we visited my mother's grave. Snow drifted softly across the cemetery. Victoria placed flowers beside the headstone. Chloe stood quietly with tears in her eyes. Neither of them had ever met my mother, yet her kindness had changed both of their lives. And somehow, years after her passing, it continued changing mine. Comment, "Kindness wins," if you believe one small act can change someone's future. As we stood there in the silence, I finally understood something I had spent years searching for. We often believe our smallest actions disappear unnoticed. We assume kindness is forgotten. We think helping a stranger doesn't matter. But sometimes a single compassionate choice creates ripples that travel farther than we can ever see. My mother never knew the life she helped save would someday connect back to her own son. I never knew stopping for a lost girl in a storm would reveal a story stretching across decades. And Chloe never knew one ride home would uncover the hidden thread connecting our families. The truth is that kindness rarely announces its impact. It works quietly, patiently, across years and generations. That stormy night began with a joke about driving a drunk girl home. It ended with gratitude, healing, second chances, and a reminder that every act of compassion matters. Because sometimes the person you help today may become the reason your life changes tomorrow. And that is why kindness always wins.